I just got to the bus station. It looks like it's just straight onto this one, Pondicherry. Of course, it's a hot bus, which is going to be a hot ride. It's about a 4-hour journey, but it's cost me 160 rupees. It cost me 140 rupees to get here, so a nice round number of 300 rupees. Welcome to Pondicherry, or Puducherry as it's now called. I want to show you something that is effectively the point at which this plays from Tamil to French. That's cool, right? I've just had a cup of chai from one of them. They charge 15 rupee. It's always very sweet tea. Give me some more pep in my step. We're getting more and more into the French section here, so I'm going to turn you round again because you'll be able to see the change.
4 hours south of Chennai. Technically this is Tamil Nadu, but historically it's kind of a glitch in the matrix. This is Pondicherry, and for 300 years this wasn't part of British India. It was the capital of French India, and even though the French left in 1954, they left a unique architecture behind. A city plan of contrasting worlds colliding at a singular water border. I came here to discover the 17th century European grid and see if this city is really the French Riviera of the East, or if it's just a marketing slogan covering up a much more complex reality. But to understand Pondicherry, we first have to go back to before the French even arrived by jumping on a boat.
It is boating time here in Pondicherry. We've got a little tour boat that we're going on. We're just south of Pondicherry. Unicorn Rider. Remember that name? Oh, sorry. Well, that was a lot of people getting on and off the boat.
For centuries, locals just thought these were old brick walls. It took the British archaeologist Sir Mortimer Wheeler to crack the code in 1945. He mapped this site and realised this wasn't a village, it was a factory. He uncovered a massive Roman warehouse 45 meters long, and behind it, industrial dyeing tanks for mass production of textiles. This proved that 2,000 years ago the quiet riverbank was an industrial engine. So in something of a kind of beautiful synergy, when the French arrived in the 1600s to set up their textile trade, they were rebooting an operating system that had been installed here for over 2 millennia. They didn't build temporary huts, they built fortifications, they built a European capital designed to last for centuries. That is until in 1761 the British Army besieged the city, and they didn't just capture it, they erased it. The city sat dead for 4 years until the new governor, Jean-Claude de Lorriston, arrived with a very simple mission: resurrection. Now, if we look at this plan, you would think that this is actually the French, but the Dutch are actually credited with this rigid grid system. They had a short occupation of the site here in the very late 17th century for about 6 years. Now, once the British razed everything to the ground after this was more established, the French then retook the grid and built off the old foundation. It's said that they built 200 mansions on the east side and 2,000 homes on the west side in just 5 months. These two sides, split into the French side and the Tamil side, were divided by the Grand Canal. Now, that's an interesting point in itself. We'll come back to this in the future section because that Grand Canal is going to change, and we'll have a look at that in more detail in a little bit. But for now, what we have to understand is the canal created a condition where the architecture changed from one side to the next. On the east side, the French side, you find more introverted architecture. Houses that are of courtyard designs. The streets were literally a corridor to get to the front door, and the front door would lead you through to a house beyond it. They tended to have flat roofs with more beautiful parapets, and internally they were just private spaces with private gardens. It was more insular. However, on the west side of the plan, the Tamil side, everything was more social, and they were defined by something called a thinai, an external bench that was built directly into their house. And this caused public interaction. You would speak to passers-by, your neighbours. It created a much more vibrant street front. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a walk from the beach all the way through the French side, have a look at the canal, and then go and have a look at the Tamil side. And let me know if you can spot the differences in the architecture as we go along.
And this is the main promenade of the area. Here it is though. So we've got the beautiful sun behind me. And the water. Shipping container over there. There's a small sandy section over there. I didn't know that existed. We might go and check that out later on. And then on the actual beachfront, you've got the lighthouse. And some very pretty looking buildings again. Yeah, so that's Nehru up there, which is cool, and he is facing Gandhi over there. So let's go through the markets because they're quite pretty, and again a bit cooler. Some really nice stuff down here. You see the French promenade down here, and then behind me here, the markets. You can actually see some more of the French detail in here, the arched windows, the pops of colour, the cornicings, and then you've got the cute little parapets as well. I don't know if you can see the parapets. So there's decorative parapets at the top as well, which is pretty cool. And that's all French design. Very nice. You see the religious Christianity forming into place there. Again, the more balcony-based places. So this is effectively the divide. So, Tamil Quarter. This side, if I can get across the road, oh, let's go for it. The smell is quite overpowering, but you can imagine how nice it would have been if it was filled with water. And now you can see like the drainage system. You can see the bend in the pipes here, kink in the pipes. So I imagine is well, it won't be good for the drainage at all. A kink in the pipes. That's what I mean. So the infrastructure gets neglected. So this is Petit Canal Street, and you can see this is where that undercurrent of the infrastructure just seems to take a bit of a battering. There's literally a chicken eating in the crap down there, but you can see how black the water is, and that's generally one of the biggest problems here. It's the infrastructure is just not great. I mean, the smell here is quite overbearing and very strong, and you can see it connects to these bits here that are below us as well. And it's interesting really because the infrastructure is the thing that really holds a city together. I mean, good infrastructure and clean city. Now, Pondicherry is trying to clean this city up. I've just been to the beach and there is literally active messages that are saying, let's clean this place up. And wow, that's creepy, isn't it? A coffin over the canal, a clear coffin as well. That's creepy as shit, but you can see here the problem. Because that water is just bad. It's in a bad way. I mean, it's literally, that is what we call black water. The nice curves, the colours, the whites, the blues. Very nice spot, and we're just a couple of streets over from that space. So we're going to walk down through the markets, and then I'm going to go and grab myself a coffee. So that's the outer ring. So it gets pretty darn busy here, but this is my coffee. And you can basically pour one to the other. People tend to mix them backwards and forwards. Let's filter coffee is nice, got good flavour. 25 rupees for a black coffee. Yeah, it's pretty decent really. Nice little social hub, people milling about having a chat. The markets now, the fruit markets that is, which are these places. The smell is fantastic in these places. As you can imagine, it just smells fresh. There's coconut vendors. Here, which is the main road, and the main kind of like shops and markets for Pondicherry anyway. The crazy thing about India is it's markets within markets. So if I turn off the main street here, you come to a back street where there's more fruit vendors. And then if I can get through here on the other side, then there's more tight street markets. Or there is stuff about though. So the market transforms a bit at night. It becomes a lot more electric, a lot more alive. There's more stalls now actually, so I'm assuming that people were waiting until the afternoon to set them up. So apparently it goes on to about 11 o'clock at night, so very late, but it is hot during the day here, so it makes sense to have it later on in the night.
Now, for the sake of a fair test, this is the Sunday market. This is as busy as it gets. It is run down one of the main streets outside in the Tamil quarter, but you can see just how busy this area is. In my opinion, they should not be allowed to let the scooters through here because it almost makes a dangerous condition, but you can see what I mean by how chaotic this is compared to what we've just been looking at. Amidst the chaos of the streets, the only structures that feel truly finished are the churches and the temples. The churches are bright white and beautifully detailed, and the temples are technicoloured. There's not a single thing out of place. In Pondicherry, these are some of the best examples of churches and temples I have seen across India. Pondicherry has 1.4 million domestic tourists every year, and because of that, the government is meant to be spending big, creating what is called a smart city for the future. They're spending 19 million USD on the refurbishment of the canal alone, and they're going to try and do something quite interesting. The storm drain that once was a segregation piece is meant to be bringing people together. It's going to be utilised as a new public realm. Think coffee shops, places to eat, places to walk, places to just hang out with your friends. It's meant to transition that Tamil quarter to the French quarter in an almost seamless way, stitching the two areas together. The government is investing in arts hubs, waste management, no parking zones. They've even put new pieces of steel into the water to bring back the sand. All of this is meant to be done though by 2025, and when I visited in 2025, it looked like it had a long way to go, leading to the question, is this project actually going to get off the ground? Let me know your thoughts on that. But regardless of the construction dust, Pondicherry remains a unique experiment. It's a living proof of how architecture can create two vastly different worlds on the same map. As these smart city projects drag on, and as India pushes forward 75 years after independence, only time will tell what happens to these spaces as they finally step out from under the long shadow of colonialism. If you're heading to Pondicherry, I'd love to hear your take on this city of contradictions. Until then, bon voyage.
Every now and then you find yourself in a really weird place, and I'm currently in a really weird place here in India. I'm going to see a place that is called Auroville.